Welcome to the Peak Revival podcast. My name is Vesna, and today I'm going to talk about how to fall in love with your business or your work again, and why it's important for your success, your profits, and your enjoyment. So whether you're in hard times financially or you're not in love with your business, maybe as you once were, you feel like the passion is gone, or it feels like you're just always putting out fires, you're just always in problem solving mode and it's just exhausting and it's sucked the joy out of your work. I want to share why it's really important to love your work and love what you're doing, because it affects your health and vitality, but it also affects the results that you get in your business. There was a piece of research done by the Mayo Clinic, and the researcher was looking at the ways that we experience our work. And the three ways that they looked at was, number one, people experience their work like a job. So the motivation here is the financial reward to fuel their life. So whether they use the money to travel, to do sports, to learn, to look after their family, put their kids in the best school, those types of things. So number one was a job. The second one was career. The focus here was on recognition. It was on personal reputation in that field. It was advancement in that field. And the motivation here was to be a success in your career, get ahead of the competition, to kind of gain power, rise to the top, right? So we're looking at CEOs, managers, leaders, athletes, Forbes 30 under 30 or a New York Times bestseller list. Those kinds of things were looked at as career. And the third one, so we have job, career, and then they had a calling. So the people who viewed their work as a calling, they found deeper meaning in their work, and they found it as an opportunity to express their core values, and they felt they were using their natural gifts. They were born to do this type of work. And so the motivation here was to make a difference in people's lives. Now, you may hear those three, job, career, and calling, and say, well, it's definitely not my calling, it's my career or it's my job, right? But what they found in this research study was actually we all experience our work in all three ways every day. So we all experience it like a job, a career, and a calling. They found people who experience their work as a calling had much lower rates of burnout, which is really not a surprise, right? Because you're coming in feeling like you're really making a difference in the world. So in that way, finding meaning in your work, so I'm not saying it's not there, but finding the meaning in your work is a really powerful form of self-care. They also found that if you didn't find meaning in your work, it drove people to a lot of unhappiness and to a lot of fatigue. My experience, what I've seen, is what really stops people from experiencing all three in their current work or business is only one thing, and it's your thinking. I would like to share a story about myself. So in the beginning of my business, with an online business, a big part of online business, if you want to be found in the internet, right, you have to do marketing. I'd come from a brick and mortar business, it was word of mouth, it was passing traffic, like that's how you built your business, right? But in the online space, it's really about driving marketing. Now, I saw marketing as very manipulative. So it's not a wonder that I didn't want to engage in marketing. So I had this real issue within my business because I didn't like marketing. I remember doing this course from a guy called Michael Neal who talked about, the course was about how to fall in love with your business. At the time, I was like not loving my business. I wasn't getting the results in my business that I wanted to either. And from that, inquiry work that I did on that program, I could really see that my thinking about marketing, how I saw it as manipulative, was the very thing that was holding me back from actually serving people, helping people, and getting the results in my business. And that was really a choice for me to focus on that part of marketing, to see it from that angle. I'd heard other people say it was manipulative, and that's what my mind hung on to, right? And it was holding me back in my results. Even if I outsourced my marketing, so you might be thinking, well, I don't like this part of my business or my job. I'll never like it. It's the worst part. I'll outsource it. And the funny thing is that if you don't fall in love with it first, even when you outsource it, you don't get the best results either. Don't know what's behind that. I'm sure we could probably work it out, but there's a lot there about you falling in love with something and the results that you get. Through that process, I really thought, well, how do I want my marketing to feel like? And what do I want my marketing to do? So I really asked myself different questions, and I could really see that what I love to do is to speak to people just like this on a podcast, share information that can be helpful for you. And if that helps people to lead people more into my business, then I feel like I've done a great job, right? I'm helping and they're coming into my business and I feel like everyone is being served. And as soon as I made that switch, it completely transformed my business. And I really enjoyed marketing. I had so many ideas. I was doing so much content. Okay, so if you followed me for any length of time, you probably think I do a lot of marketing, okay? And it's because of this switch, if I hadn't made this mental switch, and it wasn't as if I had to tell myself something positive about it. I really looked for the ways that the story that I was telling myself about how bad it was, and I really looked for the ways that I could make it work for me. That would bring me a lot more enjoyment. There is so many different ways to do things, right? So I found the way and the beliefs and the story that worked for me to serve people in a better way. And it completely changed or transformed my relationship with marketing and therefore within my business. That to me is a really powerful story because I went from absolutely hating it to, you could probably say, loving it, right? So regardless of the content of your work, it is 100% your control to fall in love with what you do. And it's your benefit to do so, right? Because it completely changes your results. It will change your health and it will change your business or your work results. When you see how much it matters to love what you do, your mind will teach you ways on how to love it. It will show you the way on how to do that, right? But we have to be pointed in that direction. So just kind of shifting away from the negative thinking that we have, because that's really the only thing that's stopping us from enjoying it, and shifting it in the direction of, okay, I want to see this in a new light. I want to see this. I want to fall in love with this. How is that possible, right? And your mind might be saying, I could never love it, but trust me, it's possible. So let me ask you a question. When you think about your work or a part of your business or even somebody that you work with that you don't like, when you think about that, what thinking comes up for you? What stories, what beliefs, what habitual thinking comes up when you think about that part of your work or your business? It's in that thinking that really sucks the joy out of what we could actually fall in love with. I want you to think about, if you were to fall in love with it, what impact would that make on yourself, on your team, on your results, on your business, on your profits? Like, what impact would it make if you actually fell in love with it? And it might even be something small, and it might even be, well, if I fell in love with it and I saw the results, then I could even outsource it, right? It's not something that you have to stay stuck with forever, but I want you to see the power of what would the impact be if you actually fell in love with it. So if there is an area of your life that you're not in love with, and it may not even be your work, it could be cooking, it could be exercising, it could be something else, right? There is an ability to fall in love with that as long as we direct our mind to that's what our intention is. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention, that if your business is stuck in hard times, and I feel like this is probably a whole nother podcast episode, but I've certainly in the beginning of my business was in financial hard times. So I really understand the kind of thinking that happens and the stress and the overwhelm and the urgency and the panic and the concern and the worry and the sleepless nights, all of that, I understand. But that same kind of thinking, that incessant worry, chatter, noisy, busy mind actually blocks us from finding a solution, because we have different types of thinking. And if we have a clear mind, we're able to access a level of thinking that we just can't access when we're stuck in that incessant loop, okay? And it's that different level or more intelligent level of thinking that our mind has that solves our problems, that creates our desires, that navigates our life. And until we can recognize those two types of thinking, we kind of do get stuck in that loop. But if you're in financial hard times, there's definitely possibilities to use your mind in better ways so you can pull yourself out of it much faster. Let me know in the comments below, what part of your business, your work, or your life would you see the benefit of falling in love with? Let me know in the comments, and what do you see as the benefit? What would change? What would be the impact?